Hi, I'm Kazuyoshi. Well, thank you for listening to this podcast program. And the title of this program, as you know, it's a habit craft for your future, transforming thoughts and actions. And I've been speaking about habit, but of course behind the scene we have the goal setting. So goal setting and habit formation craft are the kind of necessary combination that those are so necessary, important for us to make our life better. And so in the past kind of months, we have started to gather the questions from the audience or the people around me, and I've created a specific website that can help me gather the questions. And unfortunately, I'm always talking about this, but it's only in Japanese. So I think I'm starting to think about making this in English as well. But in any case, I would try to answer the Japanese questions. And of course, I will translate that in English now here. So I received this, and it's a very long story. So to make it short, there was a senior employee who wants to sort of instruct, educate, or guide the younger employee. And I don't know, the relationship is boss and subordinate, or it's just that seniority relates. So they are both at the same level, and but the senior person is asked to do some training on the younger employee. I'm not quite sure which is this. It's they have boss and team member relationship or not. However, the question is, of course, general, that if there is somebody who would definitely need some instruction to improve their work habits or work skill, maybe particularly in this case, it's not just about the skill, it's more like about the habits or the way they deal with things. And so this is a person that I would say she would kind of hesitate to say directly what is needed. And this is particularly probably a Japanese culture that feedback is difficult. And I guess in other areas of the world, maybe sometimes it's very much far more easier than if that is necessary, that need to be said, that it's not the problem to say that I would think the senior person can say what she wants to say, because that's her opinion, and whether that will be accepted by the other younger employee can make a decision on their own. But in Japan's context, it's kind of not so easy to directly say and directly accept the concept. So, but even if we conceive the cultural differences, still it is necessary to understand how we be able to provide the necessary feedback to other people. And of course, again, I'll talk about the same thing, but it really depends on the maturity of the both side, and particularly I'm not quite sure, but the person who receives the feedback, if this person is mature, but this contradicts with the fact that this is a younger employee, but if this person is mature, this person will be able to digest the advice and feedback and will be able to become a better performer. However, the reason I said however is that again, because this person is supposed to be a younger person, so who should be, in terms of maturity, probably will be not enough. So therefore, it all falls back to the senior person, maybe the boss, or even not the boss, just she is a senior person who would need to provide some advice because to attain the entire performance of this organization. So it finally falls back to, despite I said that the maturity of the person who receives the feedback is important, but it falls back to the person who will give the feedback. And in my view, of course, it is always related to the goal setting. And of course, there are another topics that we can use the feed forward thinking in this context. But in this case, probably this is much more like a specific thing that the younger person will need to at least improve something, or at least learn some way of thinking and make a shift. Probably that's better in this case in that environment, and that will be better for the people who will be impacted by this person's performance. So I'm going back to the goal setting. So my simple advice is that, I know it's not becoming simple, but simple advice is that if you are in this kind of a superior senior position, I would recommend that you think about the goal setting, about yourself and let's say himself, and also the organization or the team. I mean, these people are employed at some place. And also, you may have a customer or client, and also you may have colleagues who are working with you. So those kind of sort of stakeholders exist there. And so I know this is not so easy, but so what I'm doing regularly is that I always try to think about the goal of the people who are involved. And of course, if you do this consciously, I mean, contrary to the subconscious, so if you do this consciously, it's going to be impossible, because it will take time to think about the people around you or their organization, and each of them requires a certain amount of time to think about. However, if you be able to do this unconsciously, which means that when you are put in this position, you automatically think about all the stakeholders, as long as you perceive them, all the stakeholders. I'm talking about this as run subconsciously, which you don't think about them, but you know that they have the goal, and each of the goals are different. And probably you would, if you've been asked, you could easily say the goal of other people. So by knowing their goal, we'll be able to apply the concept of corporate coaching. So there should be some kind of optimal, some bigger goal or approach that will subsume all the parties' interest. And of course, I know this is not going to work perfectly, but it's about the concept. So as long as you know that the existence of a difference between the parties, people, that's going to be the huge thing that we want to learn. So my recommendation is that as long as you think about the goal, and of course, behind that, you first need to know that everybody has a different goal, and that goal will be shifting. And of course, each goal may contradict, like a short term, middle term, and long term. So each party, if you have a 5-party, and the 5-party has 3 dimensions, like short and middle and long term. So it's going to be 3 times 5 and 15. And also each people have a different character. So it's going to be infinity, a lot. So which is impossible to understand. So the point is that it's necessary to understand that it's impossible to understand the entire picture. And therefore, what you're going to do is to think about other people's goal, and then try to find and let our brain, subconscious I'm talking about, will work effectively and rely on that. And then you'll be able to find the ideal way of communication. And to close the kind of I'm heading towards the closing this kind of chapter, but if you have an intention, my advice is that you say the intention or the wish directly, clearly. And because kind of the candid word, direct word can help other people accelerate their understanding. But if it becomes vague, I think this would not be applicable to the English nature kind of English-speaking people, but I still keep talking about this is given to the Japanese context. So if you try to give the feedback vaguely, then you would kind of the other people will struggle to understand that, and this makes the process very slow. So my big suggestion is that as long as we understand that there are goals, each individual has goals or each group has goals, and all of them has a different character, and it's very hard to understand all of them, or it's possible to understand all of them. But the important thing is that knowing the fact that there are different people and different interests and the goals are different, and as long as you know that, the way you can communicate with other people will become smooth because you already know that. But this can't be handled consciously, which means that you need to do unconsciously. And then the question will come here, and how do we make it unconscious? And of course, like every practice of golf or tennis, you need to start it consciously. So this totally contradicts what I'm saying, but you definitely need to start consciously thinking about each parties, and the more you do it, so the more you do it, you will kind of gather or learn and kind of improve in that way. So the more thinking will lead you to deeper understanding that's going to be consciously. And finally, I pick up the words from this question, and it's quite interesting that she is telling that she wants him to look around and act autonomously, or she has a specific opinion that the other person should listen to the customer more and give a proactive advice or consultancy or those kind of things. This person, she has a specific idea of how the other person, in this case he, is working. And so he has a kind of her own version of the ideal way of working. So I don't know if that is true. So in this case, the reason is that each piece of people have a different goal. So if you understand that each people have a different goal, then you can be much more generous, and of course you can be patient, but yet you can be much more candid and specific about how you think the work and the world should be. So that's what I try to say. It starts with the goal setting, but let's be open to the difference. Alright, thank you for listening. That is for today, and look forward to speaking with you again. Bye bye.